Please be seated. Thank you very much. As I mentioned before, Route 9 North has been shut down from really Haddam, which is exit 9 North. So there will be people coming in during the meal from the southern part of the county, but we want to start this right on time. Also, we've already passed out the T-shirts to people. We had Logano shirts today in recognition of Joey Logano's great run in the NASCAR, coming in second yesterday for the whole year. Phil Cacciola again early at 5:30, Tom Danahue at 6, Derek Phelps at 6:05, and Jim Downey at 6:10. Let's have a round of applause for those people early to get tables. Also, please hold your applause until at the end, but I'd like to introduce those members of the head table that are not speaking. Our Mayor, Dan Drew from the city of Middletown, Mayor Enzo Fienza from the town of Cromwell, Kevin Lembo, who has done a magnificent job as our controller. As I say every month, he has traveled around Middlesex County to all of our divisions. He's just been unbelievable supporter of our chamber. Rick Morin, who will be our chairman next year of the chamber. Anna Wasessa, who has done a fantastic job at Middlesex Community College since she's come there. Ann Hunt, we like to recognize her from the United States Small Business Administration. We've got a great working relationship with them. And let's have a round of applause for all of them. Also, it gives me a great honor now to introduce not Kevin Brown. That'll be later, Kevin. But this morning, I'm saying, how is Kevin Brown going to get up here from down in that area? And made it. And then how is our chairman going to get up here? And he made it. And Mary Ellen Klink has made it. So we're really excited about that. And Jason Soucy has made it from the Travelers. So a little snow out there. He still has a couple of things to say. Jason Soucy.
Thank you, Larry. Yes, snow. Whew. I've been a really popular guy this fall. The golf courses look really immaculate. We had all the changes done this year, a lot of great news, but unfortunately the next few months I've become much less popular once the snow hits the ground. I'm looking forward to April when people want to see me again. Real quick, just want to say thank you again to all of our partners that support the tournament every year. Once again, we raised $2.8 million this year for charity from the 1 week from the tournament, and we couldn't do it without partners like those of you in the room. And especially I wanted to do a quick thank you to Kevin Brown and Mohegan and what you guys do for us every year. I mean, we literally would not be able to make the kind of contribution we could without support of partners like yourself. So thank you very much, Kevin. Lastly, too, be on the lookout. Our holiday packages will be coming out this week. Check your social media feeds or check our website. There's a nice warm winter hat as part of the holiday package this year. So we'll keep that Travelers Championship logo going all winter. Thank you very much.
Well, every year at this function, we give our Governor William O'Neill Award out. This award is recognition of someone that's had unbelievable public service, either as an elected individual or a person that's worked in our nonprofit communities. Mary Ellen Klink will be presenting this, and Mary Ellen is the chairperson of this committee, does a great job with this every year. Mary Ellen is a past chairman of the chamber, was the individual that really started a real estate council with the chamber. Also, she was in the O'Neill administration as a commissioner. So it really gives me a great honor to introduce a terrific citizen of Middlesex County, Mary Ellen Klink.
Thank you, Chief, Coach, and welcome to the chamber, our Senator Chris Murphy, and welcome all the people at the head table here. Is this, okay. That's why he's our coach. He knows everything. This award, as Larry has just said, is a very special award. And it is special because Governor O'Neill was our local Middlesex County governor, and he deserves to be recognized every year by the Chamber, and as far as I'm concerned, by the whole state of Connecticut. He's, as we all know, came from East Hampton. He served 10 years as the governor, but he's been a local official in this area for as long as I can remember. And I served with him those 10 years that he was governor as a commissioner, so I know firsthand what a great guy he was. And of course, I, during that time, and even before, became very friendly with Nikki O'Neill. And she really wanted to be here today. She doesn't like missing this, but every once in a while, she has to. And she called me, and I said, what message would you like me to say to all the people that are here in this room today? And these are her exact words. My mind is willing, but my body just ain't. Typical of Nikki, but she is most of the time pretty well. But this weekend, she had one of those hard weekends that comes every once in a while. This O'Neill Award today is going to a well-deserved recipient. He has been the Middletown Judge of Probate for 30 years. And this court is very unique because it handles a lot of mental health issues, and it's probably I think one of the largest in the state of Connecticut. He also has a law practice in Portland. He's president of the Middletown Rotary Club. I hope you have a whole resume in front of you, because I decided I wasn't going to put all that was in the resume, so you can take that home and read it later. But there's a couple of things I did want to mention out of it, and that he is a member of and was president of the Middletown Rotary Club, the NAACP organization, the Italian Society in Middletown. He's president-elect of the County Bar Association. And he has been the recipient of several awards. One was also the NAAC Community Service, and he also has received the Paul Harris Fellowship Award from Middletown Rotary Club. Judge Marino is married to Donna, 37 years, and has 3 lovely children. I did find out a little bit about him from somebody in his office who knows him probably a lot better than I do. And I discovered that he is an avid runner, and that's why he probably is such good shape. And he has won actually many medals. He is an avid reader as well, especially novels that will turn into movies, because he loves the movies. I also know that he is a Red Sox fan. And he's also a New York Giant fan. So I discovered I have 3 things in common. I love the I love the movies, but don't read as much as he does. And I love the Red Sox, and I love the Giants. So maybe I'll spot him in the Middletown movie sometime in the afternoon when he has nothing to do. He's supposedly, and some of you know him better than I do know, that he is well liked by everybody. And he has a great sense of humor. And mostly, he is a very fun-loving personality. So we need that laughter in our life. So if you want to stay later, maybe he'll prove that to you. So it is really my great pleasure to present the Governor O'Neill Award to the Honorable Joseph Marino, probate judge of the District of Middletown. Please come up.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. How'd you find all that about me? That's what I'd like to know. But I run to keep my sanity is why I run. So, to be honest with you, when I came in and I looked at the program, I was in momentary panic because I opened it up and I saw this approximately 20-year-old picture of me, and I said, "Oh my God, they're honoring someone else. This is going to be embarrassing. So what am I going to do with my speech now?" So I want to get in a shot at Larry before he takes a shot at me when I'm done. All of you know that Larry was a teacher at Xavier and also obviously a coach, a wonderful football coach, renowned football coach. But many of you did not know that he also taught driver's ed. And I was one of his students. And to this day, if I'm even slightly over the speed limit, a hologram of Larry comes up on my windshield with this stern visage, and I always lower the speed. So thank you, Larry, for that. I've yet to get a ticket because of Larry McHugh. So I do want to recognize a couple of people here. Mary Ellen already, she mentioned my wife, but my mother's here. And my parents instilled in me the work ethic. I've been working since I was 14 years of age when I was picking tobacco, which was an interesting job. But that was the first time I ever got on a school bus, was picking tobacco when they picked me up during the summer. So my dad passed several years ago, but my mother's here. Mary, if you don't mind standing up, Mom. I'm sure she's going to start crying soon. And then, as Mary Ellen mentioned, my wife of 37 years, Donna, who's been by me every single step of the way, and I would not be here today standing before you. I have no doubt about that if it wasn't for her. Donna? Now, a word about public service, and then at the end I will tell you of my story about Governor O'Neill, because I do have a personal story. I'm sorry Nikki couldn't be here today, Mrs. O'Neill. There's two components, I think, to public service. One is that you have to be fortunate enough, and I'm blessed, to have a position where you can get involved in the community, where each and every single day you do have an impact upon people's lives. And certainly being probate judge for the Middletown district, which includes Middletown, Cromwell, Durham, and Middlefield, has that type of position. And then a second component is to give back to the community, even if your job doesn't necessarily entail a public service aspect to it. So I am very, very fortunate, as far as being a probate judge, being able to really touch people every single day, and I love that part of my job. But whether it's approving an adoption where you fulfill a family's dream, where they've been looking for children, waiting for children for years, if it's mediating a family dispute over the terms of a will and trying to calm nerves and trying to have everybody still talk to each other when they leave the probate court, if it involves granting guardianship to a grandmother of her grandchildren because her daughter, who's the mother of the children, is in the throes of a drug addiction or something of that nature. And this is particularly true in the area of mental health. The Middletown Court's an extremely unique court. We do more mental health matters than any court in the state of Connecticut. And that's because of the fact that we have Connecticut Valley Hospital, we have Middlesex Hospital, we have Solna Children's Center, we also have Whiting Forensic, all within the CVH, all within the Middletown jurisdiction. And every single matter that comes out of those facilities comes to the Middletown Probate Court. I average 15 to 20 hearings a week just dealing with mental health, not even at the probate court, but on the various campuses of these 4 facilities. And I love it. But after 3-4 hours of doing these CVH hearings, you should see me. My hair is, straight up. My tie is like this. You wouldn't even recognize me. But that really comes into play as far as, as far as public service, because it's a constant balancing of an individual's rights to stay at the facility. They often feel that it's a prison because they can't leave, because they need treatment. And even in the arena concerning forced medication, where I am compelling somebody to take psychiatric medication against their will, because you're trying to balance that if they don't take the medication, they'll be a danger to themselves or a danger to other people. So it's a constant balancing, that aspect concerning public service. But I love it. I've been doing it for 30 years, and quite frankly, I think I'd be bored if I had a more traditional probate court, which I certainly do not. Now, the second aspect of public service involves giving to the community. So whether it involves providing legal services for Habitat for Humanity, if it involves organizing a holiday gift drive through the probate court for folks, for residents over at skilled nursing facilities, or the great multiplier, and that would be when I joined the Middletown Rotary Club. We have a Rotary Club table here. Thank you for coming. So we can multiply your effect upon the community. In fact, tomorrow we'll be delivering more than 100 Thanksgiving boxes, full dinners for folks, for more than 100 needy families. So that's the way that you can multiply the public service aspect of what you do. So as far as my Governor O'Neill story, and I'm sorry Mrs. O'Neill could not be here today. Hopefully she's going to get the story at some point. 1986, I was running for the first time. So I was running for office, and I thought, you know what, I got to put a brochure together. So it'd be great to have a picture of me with the governor. So he didn't know me. He didn't know me from Adam, obviously. First time running for office. So I picked up the phone. I called his office. I'm not sure who I talked to. The person said, we'll call you back. We'll talk to the governor. Within 24 hours, I got a call back. Within a week, I had an appointment with the governor. Now, I figured it's going to be like a 30-second photo op, in and out. But he had me there for a half hour. And the actual picture taken took about 1 or 2 minutes. But the rest of the time, he showed me around the office. He asked questions about me personally. He wanted to get to know me. And I will never forget that kindness. So that this award is even more meaningful to me because of that experience. So once again, thank you very much, and I truly appreciate it.
As someone who has dealt with Joe in some certain areas, I want to just mention that there is no one more dedicated, more compassionate, more understanding, and more of an individual that tries to make a difference in people's lives when those lives are fractured because of personal relationships and other things that impact all of us. Joe Marino is a beacon of hope for people, a beacon of understanding of people, and just a decent, good man. I'm proud of you, Joe. Before introducing Kevin Brown, I'd just like Chuck Bunnell. Thank you very much, Chuck, for being a longtime friend, also doing such a great job for the Mohegan Tribe, and also serving on the Board of Trustees at the University of Connecticut with me. I go back a long time. He's one of my son's best friends. In fact, I think Chuck stayed at my house for quite a few nights during his younger career. We won't talk about that because he has more stuff on me than I do on him. Well, as I mentioned a month ago, we had our Support the Troops Honor the Veterans event, which we had a terrific turnout for, and Kevin Brown, who comes every year to it, is the head of the Tribal Council. I said, we're so fortunate in the state of Connecticut to have leaders of so many of our different businesses and other organizations in the state that have a background of unbelievable dedicated service. And Kevin's doing a terrific job with the Mohegan tribe and with the Mohegan Sun and with everything that's happening in the Uncasville area. But this man is a real hero, a real hero. He served 25 years in our military. He was in combat environments. He also was head of the management of the Fort Riley Army base, which would be the same as a city manager of over 50,000 people. Through his service to our country, to his service to the Mohegan tribe, to the service of the state of Connecticut, this man is a true role model for all of us in this room. I want to thank him for the sponsorship today, but more important to me, he is a role model for what is good. Kevin Brown.
Thank you, Larry, for that kind introduction. I'd like to deflect and ask if you could please share some stories about Chuck Bunnell. We'll talk to you later about that. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is our honor as the Mohegan Tribe to sponsor this particular breakfast. You can tell the thread of continuity in this morning's conversation and remarks and honoree is the matter of public service. And though we sit as a Native American tribe on a reservation in Uncasville, Connecticut, we like to think that we have integrated ourselves into the fabric of not only London County, but Middlesex County and the state of Connecticut. And so it is truly our honor to be the sponsor for this breakfast this morning, where we're honoring public service. You heard Jason describe how we support the travelers. Jason, thank you. That's too kind, because the fact of the matter is your team is the team that's raising $2.8 million for charity, and that's something to be proud of. As our honoree Joe described a couple of different facets of public service, he talked about the multiplier effect. And I was very captured by that, because really I think that's what every single one of us try to achieve in anything that we do. We all give of our time or our money or our effort, but really what we want to know and what we hope to know is that it pays forward. That old saying about paying forward. And so, Joe, congratulations to you and thanks for all you've done. And our guest speaker today is someone who is no stranger to public service and creating that multiplier effect. And as Joe said, you have to be in a position to do it first. And Senator Chris Murphy certainly has spent a life of public service being in those right positions. But he's also helped create that multiplier effect. He's focused on things like job creation, affordable health care, and something that's near and dear to me and many in this room, as I've come to know in my relationship with Larry and the Middlesex Chamber, reducing homelessness for veterans. So anyone who is in public service and achieves that multiplier effect is certainly deserving of our respect. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you today our guest speaker, a man who surely deserves that respect, the Honorable Senator Chris Murphy.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, everybody. Well, good morning. I really appreciate the kind introduction from my great friend Kevin. Larry is right. Kevin individually is a role model, but let's just be honest, the tribe and what they are doing to promote economic development in southeastern Connecticut, the chances, the risks that they are taking, the faith that they're putting in the people of Connecticut, and in particular the people of southeastern Connecticut. I want to thank them for that. Judge Marino, congratulations to you and to your family, to your mom, Mary. You must be incredibly, incredibly proud. You're probably always proud of this guy, but to see him recognized in this way, I hope it means a lot to you. And to all of the elected officials here, in particular Comptroller Lembo, Mayor Drew, thank you very much for your service as well. Before, I've got a lot that I want to talk about because There's a lot going on right now, to say the least, and so I'm going to try to do it quickly, and I know we often get a chance to do questions here, so I'll try to leave time for that as well. But at the outset, I just want to take you back to my roots of public service. Growing up, I was definitely interested in government and history. It was the stuff that really kind of turned me on when I came to school in the morning. And my parents were both Republicans. My father actually was a member of the local board appointed by Republicans, and so I didn't stay out late as a teenager. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. My form of rebellion as a teenager was becoming a Democrat, and so when I decided that I wanted to get involved at a young age, it wasn't necessarily my parents who were going to help me. And so I went to 3 people when I decided that I wanted to get involved as a high schooler at Wethersfield High School. 2 of them are here today, sitting in the front row. You know them well. Paul Doyle, who was running for the first time for the town council, and he was sort of, to me, this example of a young guy breaking through that I wanted to help, and Billy Seato, who was the chairman of the Wethersfield campaigns that year. The third, though, is not with us today. Shirley Steinmetz, who many of you may know, who's the longtime chairwoman of the Democratic Town Committee in Wethersfield, longtime member of the Planning and Zoning Board there, longtime English as a second language teacher in the school system, passed away this weekend. And Shirley, to me, personified this idea of service before self. And she's most known for, and was most known for, being part of the political process, being part of the Democratic Town Committee, but that's service too. Today politics gets a dirty name. Anybody that's a politician, anybody that's working in party politics, well, that's not always equated to public service. But I'm standing here today because somebody who was in partisan politics opened the doors wide open for a kid with no background, with no experience, who just wanted to learn, hooked me up with somebody like Billy, sitting here today. And so I want to remember her as somebody who is instrumental to me being able to be here, and remember her in the context of a time in which politics sometimes seems to be a little bit lesser than other ways of doing public service. So we remember Shirley this morning as well. So let me try to give a little bit of context as much as I can for the election and for the task ahead of us, and tell you what I hope we do and tell you what I hope we don't do, and then I'd love to take your questions. At the very beginning of President Obama's term, I remember hearing a sentence from the then minority leader of the United States Senate, who's now the majority leader, Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell said, and some of you probably remember this, he said, quote, "The single most important thing we want to achieve is for President Obama to be a one-term president." He was talking about we as the Republican conference. I don't want to be too political here today, but that was hard for a lot of people to hear, that the number one objective of a major political party was going to be to try to affect an election that at that point was 4 years away. Listen, a lot of us were very surprised, maybe shocked by what happened 2 weeks ago in the election. But Donald Trump is going to be my president. He's not going to be just president for those who voted for him. He's not going to be president for just Republicans. He's going to be president of the United States of America. And there are a lot of people who want Democrats, people in my party, to either say or think or believe that sentence again, to say that our number one objective is going to be to defeat this guy in 4 years. I think that would be an enormous mistake. I think that our first job, the number one thing that we want to achieve, reflects the laundry list of priorities that Kevin told you are mine. It's creating jobs. It's getting veterans off the streets. It's improving health care. And if there are places that we can work with this president on getting those things done, then we should jump at that opportunity. And then when there are And then when there are places where we diverge, and there may be big places where we diverge, where Connecticut values are not being represented by the things that this administration does, then we'll fight him and we'll fight the administration on those fields. But I think right now the risk is repeating what I would argue was a pretty big mistake made by the minority party, and we are now the minority party 4 years ago. So let me just tell you at the outset a couple places where I think that we may be able to agree, and then let me tell you a couple of my early concerns about places where we won't. Listen, we are never, ever going to prosper as a state unless we fix our crumbling infrastructure. Right? Our salvation as a state is dependent on our ability to get people and goods to New York and to Boston. Now, we can have our own little center of commerce here in Connecticut, sell things to each other, but we are not taking advantage of that connection that we have. And we're sort of right now baked into the center of the state, but all your companies here, in some way, shape, or form, are benefiting off of their proximity to these major international centers of commerce. And yet today, if you hop on a train in New Haven and go down to New York City, you know, depending on the day, it's going to take you about 110 minutes to make that commute. In 1900, that same commute on a train from New Haven down to New York City took 80 minutes. Right, 116 years later, that commute takes longer, demonstrably longer than it did in 1900. That's because we still have bridges along that rail line that date from the Grover-Cleveland administration. That's why we have a backlog of projects that's $28 billion worth just to maintain the state of good repair. 4 bridges in the state of Connecticut, the oldest 4, collectively are about $3 billion. The one that maybe you know the best, the bridge that spans the Connecticut River, that's in the worst shape. That's about $650 million alone to replace that bridge. And so if President Trump is serious about infrastructure investment, well, boy, that scratches Connecticut's economy right where we itch. We need work on that rail line, but we need work on our roads as well. We've got highways in this state that are designed for about half as much traffic as they currently take every day during rush hour. So let's accept that offer if it comes to work on infrastructure. But let's also be careful about the way in which it comes. Right now, President Trump is talking, or President-elect Trump is talking about an infrastructure bill that actually wouldn't spend appropriated dollars on infrastructure. What he's talking about now is an infrastructure bill that would bring private capital in to build public infrastructure. And that sounds really good, but I just want to sort of lay out a caution right now about it. Private capital is only interested in flowing into infrastructure if it gets a rate of return, if it gets a payback. Right? Well, our rail line doesn't pay back right now. I mean, we subsidize it. Our roads right now in Connecticut, because they aren't tolled, don't pay back. And so if you're going to build an infrastructure package based just on infrastructure packages that pay back, then you're really only talking about building new toll roads. You're really not talking about helping us in Connecticut, or frankly, helping much of the western part of the country in which they don't have many toll roads at all. So when you hear talk of $1 trillion infrastructure package, that's not possible if you're just talking about new toll roads. And we're going to need to work with him to make him and his administration understand that it's not as simple as just bringing in private capital. I want private capital and I want public-private partnerships, but I also understand that there are some operations like our rail lines and like our highways that are never going to be able to be built and rebuilt based on the assumption that there's 100% return rate for anybody that wants to put money in. So I think this is an opportunity to cooperate, to work together. And I think it's an opportunity that is vital to economic development here in Connecticut. Similarly on trade. Listen, we have lost thousands upon thousands of jobs in manufacturing here in this state because of the way in which we've done trade deals. Now, globalization is inevitable, right? I understand that this world is not getting smaller. This world is getting more global. But the way in which we've done these trade deals, in which we have just allowed these countries to undercut us in terms of labor costs and environmental regulations, resulting in jobs moving way too quickly out of the United States, places like Mexico to Central America to Asia, hasn't worked for middle-class, working-class folks here in Connecticut. And so let's work with this new administration if they want to reset some of the ways in which we redo trade. But, and here's my but on this one as well, we also have to sort of put trade in context. It's not just that trade has happened too fast. It's not just that we've globalized too quickly. It's that we've been globalizing while we've been robbing from workers the ability to retrain themselves. Right? So that's been the problem. At a time when you have greatly expedited global trade, where you have made it more beneficial for the investors in that trade to reap the rewards of it, right? Capital gains rates coming down. You've made it harder for workers who are losing their jobs in those factories to go and get new jobs. So let's just let me just give you a quick stat. From 1978 to today, the cost of college has increased 12 times over. Okay, now you say, okay, well that's inflation, right? Well, no, that's not inflation, because during that same period of time, the cost of housing and food has increased 3 times. The cost of medical care has increased by 6 times. So the cost of college is outpacing every other expense that a family or a worker has. And so you've got this just crazy world in which trade is getting bigger, jobs are moving out of the country faster, and then we are stealing from people the ability to go get a new job. So let's have a broader conversation about trade. I'm all with President-elect Trump if he wants to say that other countries have to, be careful about how they manipulate currency or really stand up and do the right things when it comes to enforcement. But let's also understand that global trade is going to happen. Maybe it won't happen as quickly as it used to. We got to do some things to allow workers here to catch up and to be able to respond to global trade. So those are 2 places where we can work together. And boy, there are places that are really important to Connecticut. Remember, this is still a state that has a larger share of our economy dedicated to manufacturing than the American average. So as much as we talk about manufacturing jobs leaving Connecticut, no, we still have more manufacturing jobs here. And we don't need to rewrite trade agreements in order to get manufacturing right. Many of you know that I've been working for years on this issue of Buy American. The idea that the U.S. government, as the biggest purchaser of goods in the country, should be buying things from American companies. And of course, that matters greatly here in Connecticut, because that supply chain that flows from Electric Boat and Pratt & Whitney and Sikorsky, if it gets globalized too quickly, that's jobs right out of Connecticut. So I hope that the administration is going to be able to work with me on tightening our Buy American laws. So we require more government purchasing for those big defense contracts to come from Connecticut companies, to come from American companies. That's a wise investment of U.S. taxpayer dollars. It puts people to work without having to spend any more money. So places where we can cooperate. And I can probably lay out a laundry list of ways in which I think I'm going to be antithetical to the Trump administration, but let me just tell you what's keeping me up at night right now. Because we're sort of hearing of news about the president's national security team. Checks and balances work pretty well for domestic policy. So, anything that this president needs to do, he's got to get through the House and the Senate. And though they're controlled by Republicans, Democrats have a lot to say about that. So, I'm less worried about our ability to have a robust debate about domestic policy. On foreign policy, checks and balances don't work as well because the president gets to make a lot of determinations on his own. He appointed a national security advisor this week that's not confirmable by the Senate, who has basically made his name by trying to claim that Islam as a religion is to blame for all of the security problems here in this country. Again, I want to get politically here. I just want to have us all guard against this idea that a religion is our problem, that we are back in a holy war between Christians and Muslims. The quickest way to have this country be the victim of another major attack is to give bulletin board material to terrorist recruiters by telling them that Islam is the problem. Radical extremism is the problem. A perversion of Islam by groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, that's the problem. And the reason that places like Brussels and Paris feel constantly under the threat of attack is because they've done a terrible job of having Muslims assimilate into their society and culture. The reason that the United States has done a better job at protecting ourselves from those kind of extremist organizations is because we have been a society that has been inclusive, that has brought people in regardless of faith into the community of the whole. And so as this president-elect lays out his national security strategy, it keeps me up at night when I hear things like Muslim registries, when I hear things about doubling down on this idea that we're going to ban a certain religion from coming to this country. It's antithetical to who we are, but it also is terrible national security strategy. So we're going to have some work to do on foreign policy. Lastly, we don't have to wait until the next administration to make a difference for our state. We have time left in this session with the president that we have and with the Congress that we have. And I've come and talked to you, and I've come and talked to the Middlesex Chamber healthcare community about my current passion on healthcare, and that's improving our mental health system in this country and in this state. I've been putting together a bill for the last 2 years, a big comprehensive reform of our nation's mental health laws. It's called the Mental Health Reform Act, pretty boring title, but it's the first comprehensive reform of our nation's mental health laws in a generation. And I won't go into the laundry list of the things that it does. It forces insurance companies to stop discriminating against people with mental health by saying that you can't have rejection rates for mental illness that's any higher on average than those for physical illness. It incentivizes systems to come together so you don't get your physical health care here and your mental health care over here. It reforms privacy laws to make sure that parents can actually get information about their adult schizophrenic kids, and that they maybe don't have to go to court as often as they do to try to get involved in the care of their children. It's a big reform, and it's totally bipartisan. We have 28 co-sponsors in the Senate, 14 Republicans, 14 Democrats, and there is a chance that it's going to get done in the next couple weeks. We are pushing like heck to try to have it be one of the few things that are completed before we adjourn for the year. This would probably be the most important piece of legislation that I've passed as a member of Congress or the Senate. We've done it in the right way in that we convened probably 20 different working groups here in Connecticut before we ever introduced the bill, just to get feedback so that we got it right. And if we do pass it by the end of the year, there are going to be millions of people who will get better care in this country, and it'll be something that everybody in this room, especially those who came to those forums, can take some credit for. This is the best job I've ever had in my life. It's frustrating. It often just boils your blood to be part of a process that often isn't working like it should. But I feel like I get up in the morning and read the paper and get really angry about something, and then go to work and try to fix it because you've given me the opportunity to do this job. Thank you for sending back my partner, Senator Blumenthal. He and I work as a team. We try to divvy up responsibility as much as we can, and I am continually eager to come and visit your business, to come and visit your nonprofit, to learn more about this state that's meant so much to me. Thank you for celebrating public service today. Have a wonderful holiday, and thank you for having me once again to the Chamber. Thank you, Larry. Some questions? All right, I'm all yours. I know people are busy and the roads are probably getting better as we're sitting here, but I'd love to take any questions that you have while I'm standing up here. So, trying to see hands if I can. So, yep, yeah, in the blue, yeah, go ahead. Yep.
You talked about the opportunity of training people to take place or to educate them to be able to take over new jobs when the other jobs leave. Yet I hear about our state trying to close down the technical high schools to satisfy budget issues. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
So pretty much every week that I'm back, I'm in a different manufacturing site, and thank you for the work that you do in Millfield. Today I'll actually be in one of the Sikorsky suppliers in Shelton, I think, visiting them. And you hear loud and clear what's going on right now. There is a potential tsunami of manufacturing work coming to this state, but we don't know whether we have the workforce to meet it right now. Now, to Governor Malloy's credit, and I would argue to the credit of the congressional delegation, we've had a very planful strategy over the course of the last 6 years to dramatically increase the number of people who can get into manufacturing training pipelines. So you know all about these advanced manufacturing centers that we've been setting up at community technical colleges all across the state. They have placement rates that are crazy. They have, 85, 95% placement rates. As fast as we can stand them up, kids are going through and getting out into job placements. A lot of that is federally funded. We've gotten some big federal grants to open up more of these advanced manufacturing centers, in particular sort of in central and eastern Connecticut. We have a specific electric boat training pathway that's been funded federally. I think that rumor about shutting down those schools got out a little bit ahead of itself, and I think the administration has corrected the record on that. But you know what's coming in Hartford. You know that there's another $1 to $1.5 billion in savings or increased revenue that has to be found in order to make the books balance. So you're all going to have to go up there and sing for your and your workers and our economy supper again to make the case that these are programs worth saving, and that cuts to job training are just cutting off your nose to spite your face because you'll lose the money in through the additional revenue. We'll continue to fight for more grants and more funding at the federal level as well, but I think there's a strong case to be made that wherever the cuts come in Hartford, they can't come at the expense of the pathways into our new economy right now. It's absolutely vital. Yep. All the way in the back, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I work in the nonprofit arts sector, and I have a lot of friends who are people of color, who are immigrants, who are LGBT, who feel threatened and scared right now, legitimately, I think, based on what the president-elect and his people have said over the past months. So I would just like to hear from you what you as a senator are going to be able to do about fear in this country. And, we've already seen a big spike in hate crimes in just 2 weeks, also in Connecticut and throughout the country. And, what can we do as a senator, what do you recommend that we as a community, and we as individuals do to protect people in our society who are vulnerable right now?
Well, thank you for the question. Thank you for the work that you do in the arts. Frankly, on these questions of building inclusive, tolerant, loving communities, it's often the arts that are ahead of the curve, that sort of give us a vision of who we should be and want to be and get us there. So I'm borrowing a line or a way of thinking about this from a colleague of mine, but that phrase in the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal, is as radical as it was wrong. Right? It was this radical idea that sort of the cornerstone, the North Star of our country was going to be equality. The idea that everybody, no matter who you are, no matter where you came from, you get an equal shot to succeed. Right? That was radical at the time. Now, it was wrong as well, because even when that was written, not all men were equal at the time, and of course it only said men, right? It didn't say women, and so we were flawed from the start. But we've had about, 240 some odd years of experience since we wrote that line, and our entire history is about sort of self-assessment. Are we there? Are we at that North Star of equality for everybody? And if we aren't, how do we get closer to it? So we looked around and we said, well, wait a second, we're enslaving an entire race of people, and we fought a war over indentured servitude. We looked around and we said, well, wait a second, an entire gender can't vote, can't participate in politics, and we went through the women's suffrage movement. We said, well, wait a second, we don't enslave African Americans any longer, but they can't vote and they can't sit next to whites at a lunch counter. We went through the civil rights movement. Over the course of the last 20 years, we've gone through and are still moving through the fight for LGBT rights. And yet, if you really track our country's history, when we make the biggest progress, there are often moments of temporary retrenchment. Now, that's not to apologize for those moments, but it happens. when we make great progress, we often get faced with a backlash from people who might not be ready for it. And again, not to apologize for their lack of readiness, but that is, I think, the moment that we're in today, a moment of retrenchment, and it's a gut check moment for our country. It's a moment when we have to decide, are we still heading towards that North Star of equality? Are we still getting there, no matter the fact that it seems like we just got smacked in the face when it came to trying to stand up for our LGBT brothers and sisters, for our immigrant brothers and sisters, right? For those that still need help and protection from the law. And so I think for those of us in positions of power, we're obviously going to fight these fights where they matter, whether it be on people asking to be confirmed to the cabinet that have a history of discrimination, or whether it be policies that discriminate. But we also have to take ownership as well at a local level. You're right, there have been a spike in acts of intolerance and bigotry and bias. And we can't wait for somebody in Washington to condemn that. We can't wait for somebody in the White House to come out and try to build inclusive communities locally. We've got to do that. Now, I'll provide leadership at the local level, and believe me, I have a lot to say about some of the things that I find harmful to keeping us on that trajectory. But remember that 80% of this is in our hands at the local level, and we can call out those acts when we see them. All of us, we can do things to teach kids about the value of tolerance, the value of keeping to that North Star. You'll have people who will fight on these fronts at the national level, but a lot of it exists in our hands here in Connecticut.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, just before we go, I just want to mention a couple things, one of which is the fact that I want to have Greg Shook get up and be recognized. I'm very thankful for the fact that we have a great board of directors of our chamber that does so much. Our leadership with Greg this year has been phenomenal. He is a terrific human being in person, and it follows along with what our Senator Murphy has just said, and Joe Marino. Our area here is a very unique area where we're all pitching together every day to make this community a better place to live and work for every one of our citizens. That's every one of our citizens. And that is so, so important. And that's why, Greg, I'm so proud of you in your leadership role. And I'd just like to have Greg get up and be recognized, and then he can just recognize our new members, and then we can go home and celebrate Thanksgiving the way it should be celebrated, with our families, our friends, and the thought process that each of us should be blessed that we live in this great country of ours, and we have leaders like Chris Murphy, and we have a leader like Kevin, and both Kevins, and others here, the mayor and Enzo. And we are moving forward in our region and state, and we will not step backwards. Our great leader, Greg Shook.
Thank you, Larry. I'm also thankful and grateful to be of service to this fine group that's been operating for such a long time. I want to also thank the judge for what he does, and the senator. The synergy of both of you working in mental health is one of the. Somebody has to stand up for those situations, and it goes into almost every household across the country. So what you do there is, I wish you both luck, and I'm grateful. Also want to be you to take a moment to look at your state and local officials that are in attendance. We're thankful for all that they do each and every day. All of us will hold hands, and we will work as we move forward together. I'd like to recognize the lifeblood is our new members. I'm going to ask them to stand up if they're here. Innovative Transformations out of East Hampton. Thank you. Strategic Energy Partners out of Middletown. Yeshiva Gadala of Waterbury. I'd like to briefly also, for member accomplishments, Amanda Furlong from the Middlesex United Way. Congratulations on being hired as a communications director. Thank you. I want you all to have a happy Thanksgiving and enjoy your families.
Sun always shines in Middlesex County. Have a great day.